The Education Collaborative was envisioned by Ashesi University back in 2016 when in thinking about our skills strategy as a university, we asked ourselves, how quickly can we really bring about this African Renaissance if we're just doing it within ourselves at Ashesi University? So in thinking around this goal for transformation, we asked ourselves, could we rather bring along other institutions on the continent who buy into this similar vision, to work together to really rapidly and quickly scale the outcomes for students on the continent. And so in achieving that, we've had to work through the differences in culture, the differences in context, the differences in types of institution, right? So those have really been our biggest challenges. And in tackling that, we've had to take a very organic approach to building the relationships and the connections that we've established in the Education Collaborative. So I would say the university leaders really have been our biggest ally, working through the kinks together, working through how to collaborate more efficiently and effectively, and helping us to determine where to prioritize resources and efforts to ensure the best outcomes. Also, a very notable ally has been the MasterCard Foundation in believing in this vision, in this initiative, and supporting through its resourcing for the next few years. In the last 3 years, we have been rolling out our 10-year strategy, ending in 2030. In doing that, we've really figured out how best to set up a regional hub, because the Education Collaborative is organized or implemented through regional hubs to drive further contextualization and relevance of the solutions and the sharing that happens. And in the last 3 years, one of the biggest successes is setting up these regional hubs. We set up East African Hub with about 10 institutions being the anchors in that region. And then we set up with the West Africa regional hubs with close to 15 higher education institutions really driving priorities in that region. So the future looks like institutions seamlessly working towards one goal for transformative higher education in Africa. And I think that's one of the biggest goals we are working towards in the Education Collaborative, to build a certain culture of trust such that institutions at any point feel like they can rely on each other to learn, to address challenges, and to make progress in giving quality education to the students that come through their systems and structures.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited to have this session with you. I would like to request everyone on the chat box, we're requesting to have some information, just really which institution you're joining us from and how many people graduate from your university every year. Just so we can get to know a little bit more about you. It's a very exciting session that we have today. We're going to be covering leveraging LinkedIn to enhance your professional development and career prospects. My name is Patricia Bishuki. I'm at USIU Africa, and one of the leads for the Employability Community of Practice at Education Collaborative. And it's very exciting that you've joined us today, because today we're going to be learning how we can leverage LinkedIn to learn more about using the tools, using the features on LinkedIn to expand on our professional development, but also to support us in supporting our students in their employability and in their career journeys. So this session is also part of the Education Collaborative Employability Community of Practice efforts to equip the members of this collaborative with the tools and knowledge, not only to succeed in your own career as a career professional, but also to support you in providing the necessary tools and skills you need to support students. So I'm very happy today to be welcoming Stuart Samkange. Samkange is a LinkedIn expert, if I should say that. He's currently the LinkedIn Academic Talent Solutions Lead for Africa, but also supports Central and Southeastern Europe. He has been in the HR and talent management space for a while. He's worked with very renowned organizations, Oracle, Microsoft, and also IBM and LinkedIn. Today, he'll be talking to us about creating a stellar LinkedIn profile, strategically connecting with industry professionals, and using LinkedIn tools and features to support our student and graduate employability outcomes. It is our hope that by the end of this session, you will have gained some valuable insights and you can be able to transfer the knowledge to the students that you're supporting, but also use the skills that you're learning in this session for your own professional development. So let's make the most out of this opportunity. If you have any questions, please feel free to type it in the chat box. We're going to be having periods where you can raise you can ask questions. You can be able to put it in the chat box, in the Q&A box. But for now, I just want to introduce Stuart. Welcome, Stuart. The floor is now yours. As we say in Kenya, karibu.
Asante sana. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Yes, and I am watching today or broadcasting live from Nairobi, Kenya. Typically, I sit in Dublin, Ireland, which is where our corporate head office is. But today I'm in East Africa and happy to be here. So welcome to all of you. And thank you very much for joining. My name, as introduced already, is Stuart Samkange, originally from Zimbabwe. And as I mentioned, I sit in the corporate head office for LinkedIn that's based in Dublin, Ireland. I get the pleasure of working with higher educational institutions. Some of you we've met already, those in universities, colleges, polytechnics, and TVETs. Maybe we've met before, but I look forward to meeting the rest of you and having a really interactive session. With the institutions I get to work with, we'll demystify during the course of this presentation some of the things that we help with, but today's session is really about talking to you as career services professionals, as alumni relations professionals, or those who are concerned with student outcomes, how you can leverage the LinkedIn platform to help our students get the dream jobs that they want. So that will be the focus on the session today. And how we're likely to spend our time together is that it's going to be split up into two sessions. One session is going to be driven on PowerPoint. I won't read every specific slide and point, but I will allude to the things that are most important, and you will get access to the slides afterwards. And then the second portion is that I'm hoping when we're getting into the Q&A section, I can open up and show you the platforms that other institutions are using to help students get access to opportunities. From an expectation of the PowerPoint and what we will be covering, I'm sure you've read it up on screen, as maybe just to demystify LinkedIn and why it's important for our student journeys from classroom to career. We'll talk, of course, about how to build out a great profile, how to network strategically, search for jobs, and then what are some of the other things that can help our students go the extra mile to get access to those opportunities. And then we'll talk about some of the resources that are available to you as career services professionals. Now, I thought it would be best off to start off by demystifying what a career is. And I know you're career services professionals and you're probably saying, Stuart, we already know what a career is. But I think it's equally important, especially in the time that we're living in now, that we take time to educate our students around what a career journey can look like. Ideally, most of us have a utopian view that, of course, we'll come to higher educational institutions, we'll graduate, we'll get internships, we'll get full-time jobs, and then we'll rise into leadership roles. But this is not how life is, because life is not perfect. And the lives of our students are not perfect. Our students will seek opportunities outside of our current geographies. Our students will seek jobs and opportunities outside of the areas that they've studied in. Our students will also get into jobs where companies may either grow and become merged and acquired by other organizations, or companies may even just fold up. Again, we must also remember that our students do not necessarily aspire to work and live in the countries where they are right now. And what's going to help our students transition throughout this whole journey is them making time for learning and acquiring critical skills that will help them pivot into entrepreneurship, into employment, or into other careers. The other reason why I put up this slide as my first and opening slide is that life is not perfect. And there's no such thing as a perfect profile. And a lot of our students hold back from building out LinkedIn profiles because they're waiting for perfection, to have work experience, to have an internship, to put in skills, to put in certificates. Here's what I want to recommend is that this sort of intervention that we're doing with our students should be happening on a regular basis, which is why today I'm taking time to train you as teachers or as coaches that are going to be working with students, because the journey for them to start building up their profiles should start well in advance of them graduating, should start well in advance of them writing their final exams and final papers. It should start in year one. And it should start in year one because there's certain things that are really difficult to catch up on, such as building a credible network of people that can give you informational interviews, of people that can endorse your skills, of people that can give you recommendations. That all needs to start in earnest in year one, so that as they go through their academic career with you, they're building up a credible network, and so much so that by the time they're looking for economic opportunities, it'll be much easier for them to get those opportunities. But I said I'll start off by demystifying LinkedIn. And to demystify LinkedIn, I want to put it clear to those of you who are out there that we're not just about jobs. In fact, we're so much more than just jobs. The jobs platform is what a lot of us know us for. And of course, on the jobs platform, LinkedIn has over between 11 million to 20 million jobs on the platform at any given time. Did you know in the last year alone, over 4 million people received jobs courtesy of LinkedIn? That means every single minute there was 8 people being hired. But I said it's so much more than jobs. It is so much more than jobs because, of course, on the same platform, we have members like you and me and the students we're trying to support. And these people, like ourselves, come onto LinkedIn not only to look for jobs, but coming to learn, to share, to earn, to sell, to market on the platform. With that being said, there's also a strong representation of companies. And what it means for your students is that if they're on LinkedIn, ideally, they should be following companies that they want to work for. That way, their feed, what they see on their LinkedIn every day, is informed by those that they follow. These could be people they follow, or more importantly, organizations that they follow. And this is important because, of course, when you start seeing the content that an organization posts, then you start getting a good understanding of what are they hiring for, what markets are they trying to get into, what success have they had, and how can you as a student play a role should you be given an opportunity to work for that organization. What's more, on LinkedIn, companies come onto this platform to hire, to learn, to market, and to sell. And all of this information helps your students prepare for the world of work. So to start off, I think if you're doing a session for students, start off by demystifying what LinkedIn is, and that it is a professional network where, of course, the world's professionals come together. I think you saw in the previous slide that there's over 1 billion people that are on LinkedIn. Out of those billion members, people like you and me, there's over 5.2 million of those people who are hiring managers and recruiters. And of the 67 million companies that are on LinkedIn, over 720,000 of those are using LinkedIn to recruit. And what's more, these companies are located in over 230 locations around the world. So if your students are still grappling with the question of why should I focus on LinkedIn? Well, because it gives you access to economic opportunities and allows you to speak to the world at large. So you're speaking to over 230 countries, you're speaking to over 700,000 companies, and you're speaking to well over 5.2 million recruiters about what you can bring into the world of work. As we start journeying into how to build a great profile, and remember, I said a great profile. I didn't say a perfect profile because there's no such thing as a perfect profile. When we start thinking about building a great profile, we should maybe have a lens and a view of how the information we're sharing on LinkedIn is ultimately used. What I've put up on screen is how recruiters use filters to identify your students. So I tend to share this with students quite early in the discussion so that they have some sensory awareness that the information we're going to be uploading on our LinkedIn profiles, these are some of the ways that recruiters go about shortlisting and bringing people through for interviews or hiring people. So it pays that we're authentic and that we're accurate about the information that we're putting on the platform. And I'll show you how this information should be laid out. And then, of course, you can always relay this back to your community and the community you're supporting. From a student perspective, I also try and encourage them from day one to have some goals around why they have a presence on LinkedIn. Because it's equally important for us to go at this, not just randomly like we do with other social media platforms, but really to be focused around certain goals and things that will ultimately help our careers and our future prospects. And here I've documented some of the key reasons why students have profiles on LinkedIn. It's to build up their professional brand. It's to build up the probability and the chances of them getting access to new economic opportunities that will ultimately improve their financial status. It's for them to use LinkedIn to stay informed so that they can use it to prepare for job interviews, to prepare to position themselves in front of hiring managers. We also highlight for students that LinkedIn is a place where we go in to celebrate the voices of other professionals. So to go in to engage with other people's content, but at the same time, as a student, for us to stand out, to be recognized, it is also equally important that we start sharing content on LinkedIn that starts outlining some of the credibility, some of the skills, methodologies, and things that we can bring into the world of work. And because our students are young, I tend to also start off the discussions by trying to demystify the difference between LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So for examples, I'll put up an example here of an analogy of if I was to talk about love of traveling, if I was to do that on other social media platforms, how I would go about doing it. And what I emphasize for my students here is that ultimately at this stage, when we're using these platforms, we are spending time. And time is something that we should hold valuably, and time is something that we should be using smartly if we are to help ourselves for our future. Because here's the reality. If we were to talk about, of course, traveling, like we did in the previous example, if we were to talk about traveling on LinkedIn, these are the sort of things that we'll be talking about. It would have a more professional tone to it. You'd be looking to strategically network with other people who like traveling. You'd be looking to review and share your perspectives about maybe some of the destinations you've had. You'll be sharing best practices you have to do with traveling. You'll be joining groups so you can find out those who can endorse you, those who can hire you, those who are industry captains. There are various things that you would be doing around the topic of traveling, but in a much more professional tone. And in that sense, we are investing. We're investing in relationships, we're investing in knowledge, we're investing in things that will ultimately help us. And that's the difference between LinkedIn and, of course, other social media platforms, is that on other platforms, we're spending time, but on LinkedIn, we're investing time. And when we invest, we do get returns. I transitioned then to start preparing students to talk about what makes a great LinkedIn profile. And I will, at the end of this slide, take some of your questions that you might have. But ultimately, when you're trying to demystify LinkedIn for a student who might not even have a LinkedIn profile, is to maybe highlight some of the key benefits. Number one, it's free. Right. So everything I'll talk about today will be based around the free aspects of LinkedIn that are available. Number two, it gives you a global view to tell your story to the world at large. Number three, it ultimately helps you find jobs by setting up certain filters so that when those jobs become available, you are notified of them. But before you even go about applying for jobs, you want to stay informed about the industry you're in. You want to stay informed about, of course, the opportunities that are available. So LinkedIn strategically helps you connect with other professionals in the world today so that you may become more productive and more successful in your job search. And what's more, as you connect to those people, as you connect to organizations, of course, it helps you stay informed in what's happening in your industry, what's happening in those companies you want to work for, and ultimately what you can socialize when you're given a chance to be interviewed. Last but not least, unlike your resume, unlike your CV, this is a dynamic billboard story of you, meaning those who need recommendations, they will find them on your LinkedIn profile. Those who need to understand your credibility, they'll see it on your profile. Those who need to see the latest investments you've made in learning and acquiring skills, those that will see it on your LinkedIn profile. Let me stop here and check if there's any questions before we proceed on to the next part, which is really about what should be in a great profile. So, Patricia, take one question and then we can move on.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. I really like what you've talked about LinkedIn. It's a dynamic billboard. It's not a static resume. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hand or even put it on the chat box, and we can be able to, Stuart can be able to respond to your question.
I'll take advantage of the silence and proceed because we do have a lot to share. And as I said, I won't speak about everything specific, but I'm trying to educate you as career services professionals on what you can start sharing. But I think David's got his hand up. Yes, David.
Yeah, so thanks, Stuart, for the presentation, which is very enlightening. My name is David Mutawanura from Cavendish University in Uganda, and I have two questions. The first is about, the jobs that are posted on LinkedIn. There is a certain impersonal feel that one might get, in the sense that they don't. You wonder whether you're not, if you respond, you're not applying, to a machine, literally, quote unquote, a machine. That's number one. Number two is, as a university, we would like to work closely with LinkedIn to support our students and alumni with respect to opportunities and other initiatives. For example, how they can improve their employability skills through learning, but also branding and things of that nature. So it would be a pay-for service, I suppose, but would like to connect with LinkedIn as an institution. Those are the two areas that I wanted to put forward. Thanks.
Thank you for that, David. Of course, you can partner with LinkedIn, and I'll be giving a QR code on how you can book time with me so that we can have a discussion on how we can support you. And then number two, in terms of job searching, which is something we'll be touching, it'll be the fourth topic. On job searching, I'll show you what you can do to ensure that you're actually getting some favorable responses. And maybe, again, to highlight how recruiters are thinking. And one of the things you are all going to get, if you stay until the end, is that I'll give you a QR code that will give you access to the workplace learning report and also the future of recruiting. And that will help you understand how recruiters work and what they tend to prioritize. But let's get on to talking about a LinkedIn profile and what are some of the 9 things that should be in a great profile. Of course, there's so much more that you can add, but ultimately, here are the top 9 things. Number 1, encourage your students to have a professional photograph in terms of the profile. Train them that, of course, human eyes will naturally be attracted to images so much more than they will be to text. So a professional photograph, no family, no friends, no pets, no cropping out other people, but something that represents the industry you want to work in is a great way to start in terms of your profile. Number 2, beyond your profile, there's a second image that you can put, and that's the image that tends to be behind your profile photograph. If this was a paid place, it would be a very valuable real estate in terms of marketers wanting to put an advert behind you. But LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to put in an image that starts telling the story of your aspirations, the career, the industry, or what motivates you, or even your contact details. So definitely leverage that as a student. Number 3, As a student, make sure you've updated on your LinkedIn profile your location. And here I found students tend to put in aspirational locations. So maybe you want to work in New York. This is not where you put it. Excuse me. Here, I would encourage you to put the location of where you are today, because when recruiters are searching, they will search by location and opportunities will be given to those in those locations. If you aspire to work in New York or to work in South Africa or some other location, there is a place where I will show you where you can update that. Number 3, it's not on the screen, but one thing I would encourage you to do is to update your industry, the industry that you desire to work in. Because again, when recruiters are searching, not only do they search for people who are close to where that opportunity is, but they're also looking for people that have a vested interest in the industries that they're trying to hire for. Number 4, your about section, your summary, probably the one place where students tell me they struggle. And here's where having 1 billion people on LinkedIn is useful, because for you as career services or for your students, one of the things they can do is they can look at how other people are telling their story and maybe borrow a word or two, but be authentic. Don't borrow words around skills or things that you don't know how to do. Encourage your students to be authentic, because again, remember, LinkedIn, they're connecting to people they know, people they've studied with, people they've worked with. So if they lie, someone will call them out for it. So let's encourage our students to be authentic. In that same about section, that same summary, here's where they can start introducing themselves. Ask them to make it like an elevator pitch. This is who I am. Here's what skills or impact or results that I've brought in, or what skills I'm acquiring, and the industries I'd like to work in, or why I'm on LinkedIn. So your about section is probably where people will spend 40% of their time reading in your profile. So look at other people's profiles, get a couple of ideas, and own your own story, because your story is unique. And this is why I said it's a digital billboard. This is where I expect most changes to be coming in terms of your profile. Next, your education. Encourage students to ensure that under education, the logo for the institution where they're studying or other institutions they've been to, make sure that the logo is showing. Because over 133,000 schools and universities and colleges and tertiary institutions are represented on LinkedIn. If the logo shows, it means you're now part of the alumni. And what that means is when a recruiter, maybe based on past experience, is searching for talent, specifically from a location, specifically from a school, then they're more likely to find your student. Number 5, next, ensure that your students tell the story of who they are as an individual, because on this platform, you're connecting with other human beings. And if you're connecting with other human beings, like Maya Angelou said, people forget who you are, people forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So number 5 is putting in volunteer experiences. So what we've found is that people will spend you'll get 6 times more profile views if you put in your volunteer experience, because organizations likewise do corporate social responsibility activities and also have community-based activities. So tell the story of who you are as a student and what you contribute to the world. Next, ask your students to ensure they leverage the 50 slots they have available for updating skills that they have or possess. So you have 50 skills that you can put in on your LinkedIn profile, and those that you're connected to can endorse you on those skills. This increases your social capital, because of course, if more people are recommending you for AI or PowerPoint, or recommending you for leadership, then endorsing you for leadership, for AI, for Excel, for fundraising, or whatever skills you've put in, then it means that the recruiter is more likely to believe that you're capable of delivering that in the workplace. Next, you want to ensure that you also go out there and seek recommendations. Recommendations could be from those that you already know in the world of work. So students can reach out to professors, lecturers, can reach out to places that have done internships and say, please give me a recommendation. And my pro tip here is get a recommendation that outlines the skills that you delivered on, or skills that you used to deliver in the work that you did, or the impact and results that you brought into that specific organization or workplace. Recommendations make it easier for recruiters to trust and validate your credibility, because recruiters now, unlike a CV or resume, can now see the people who have recommended you. How do they know you? In which capacity? How far back do they know you from? And of course, what role they're playing in their own organizations, and whether that recommendation carries weight. So recommendations are super important, just like it is with, of course, endorsements. I'd also encourage your students to show the world at large their diverse skills. We are living in a global world, and in a global world, it means that we have an opportunity to educate the rest of the world around our own local specifics. Speaking of local specifics, let me just go back there and help expand that point a little bit. Number one, spoken languages, written languages, ask them to do that. Again, around local specifics, if they've won any local awards or they've won any qualifications, again, ask your students to add those into their profiles as it starts demonstrating the type of person they are. Next, and this is the one area a lot of you on this call asked help on, networking. And I'm glad you asked for that, because you are going to see the 4 things that help students get jobs after graduating. And the number one, and I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here, is networking. It pays for us or anybody like your students to build up a credible network of people. But why are they building out this credible network? They're building out this credible network of people on LinkedIn, not because it's a popularity contest. No. LinkedIn, you should be connecting to people you know. You should be following people you'd like to work for or people you don't know. That way, you're still able to see their content as much as interact with it. Then you will, after a while, establish a relationship and then ask for someone to connect. That network could be people you know, such as family, friends, and neighbors, etc. But ideally, you want to search for people that are like-minded, people that maybe study the same thing as you, people that are currently working in industries you care about or doing jobs that you care about. Perhaps it could be even your university alumni. And I've shown an example there of University of Nairobi, which has 166,000 alumni on LinkedIn. Encourage your students to look at their alumni, because they will be able to look and see where do they work, what do they do, what are they skilled at, what do they study, and start establishing connections. And it's easier to ask an alumni to say, how did you get into your job? What skills did you build? What kind of skills is your bank looking for? What other skills should I invest in as a student if I want to end up working for your telecommunications company? What's more, LinkedIn will start suggesting for you certain people that you should be adding to your network. In terms of the network as well, maybe it's important to demystify one thing. When you're on LinkedIn, I'm sure you've seen under either people who have commented or liked your content or people that are reaching out or making comments, you'll see a small number next to it. 1, 2, or 3. First, second, or third. Those are your degrees of separation. First degree are your people that you know or connected with. Second degree are people they know. And third degrees are people outside of your network. My point to students is always for them to actively seek to grow their second and third degree connections, because those are people outside of their network. And you heard me say it a little bit earlier on, LinkedIn is not a popularity contest, right? So ultimately, professionals behave differently on this platform than they would behave on other social media platforms. And I think it's important to socialize that with our students, that the way people behave on LinkedIn is a little bit different. They are professionals. What we should be measuring when we're on LinkedIn is not the number of likes that we have or the number of people that follow us or number of connections that we have. What we should be measuring is the number of impressions, as in people reading our content. What we should be celebrating is the number of people that are reposting our content or resharing our content because they're giving us access to networks outside of our own environment. Next important thing that most of you wanted help on in terms of helping your students was around jobs. And around the jobs side of things, of course, LinkedIn is a platform where people get access to jobs. Like I mentioned, 4 million people got jobs last year. That means every minute, 8 people were getting hired. But what I didn't share is the fact that every single second, 3 new people are joining LinkedIn. So for your students, it's important that if they want to stand out, particularly for those who are looking for internships, placements, or looking for jobs, that ultimately they need to leverage the platform to get access to those opportunities. We've already spoken about networking so that you can reach out to people and say, I see their jobs in your company, tell me more. The other way is by going in and having a structured job search where we set up on LinkedIn for success. A couple of things that we can do. Number one, you can say you're open to work. So under your profile photograph, your student can go in. There's a little drop-down menu, as you're seeing on screen right now, where you can say, I'm open to work. And this tells, by choice, the world or just recruiters, it's up to you, to the student really, tells the community they want, either just recruiters or the whole world, that I am open to work. You can then specify the types of jobs that you're looking for. So it could be contract, could be full-time, it could be part-time, etc. You could tell the world the type of titles you're interested in. You can tell the world the location that you're prepared to work in. So maybe today you're sitting in Ghana, but I want to work in New York. So now I can put in New York, or I can put in London, I can put in Johannesburg and other locations that I want. So under the Open To facility, your students start educating and helping recruiters understand what kind of jobs they're interested in, which locations they want to work in, and of course, the types of roles they are interested in. Also, under job searching, what else your students can do to help themselves set up for success is to leverage the filters that are available on LinkedIn to do a search and say, here's the types of jobs, here's the locations, and the titles that I'll be interested in, or jobs that have certain skill sets. So I encourage you to encourage your students to leverage the filters and also to set up job alerts so that when LinkedIn identifies a job that is aligned to the skills or to the certifications or the experience or the aspirations a person has, that they get notified. And of course, if their LinkedIn profiles are up to date, it means you can apply using your mobile device. Let me check in with my moderator and see if there's any questions as we continue with our session. Do we have a question?
Yes, we have a question from Aravinda Ram. Do people still need a CV given how popular the digital CV on LinkedIn is becoming? And then the second question is, does this mean having the open to work feature on? Is it essential for all students?
All right. So
yes, such questions.
So I'll start with the last one. Open to work. Yes, open to work definitely helps you, because here's what's going to happen is that when recruiters are searching, they typically don't have too much time, and they're quickly trying to shortlist the people who will be brought in for interviews. And typically, if they see someone's open to work, this does not mean they're unemployed. It could mean, for example, that I'm in a job, but I'm not happy. But typically it means to a recruiter, you're in the search, you're likely to accept to do an interview, and that also, if we were to try and hire you, you'll be able to leave wherever you are or join us immediately. So that's why the open to work is necessary. Not everybody has to do it. Remember, LinkedIn is your profile or the student's profile. They choose what exactly they want to have shown or for people to see on their profiles. What is the second question?
The second question is it important to have the traditional CVs, considering how popular the digital CV on LinkedIn is becoming?
Yes, I would say it would be important to still have a CV because certain organizations still request a CV or a resume. But I would say equally important is keeping your profile up to date, because and it's a great segue to what we're going to talk to, is the fact that most of us will see jobs when we are commuting, when we're on the road, or when we're driving, or when we're on our way somewhere. And chances are recruiters will close their shortlisting within the first 3 days of posting out a job. So it pays that if your student's profile is up to date, they can apply immediately from LinkedIn by using what you're seeing here at the bottom of the screen called the Easy to Apply button. What's more, on your LinkedIn profile, as much as it's up to date, maybe they do want a resume from you, or your resume tends to have more details perhaps than your LinkedIn profile. You can attach it as a featured item on your profile. And guess what? When our recruiters search, not only does it search your profile, but it also goes in and searches that attached CV or resume. So it pays for them to have a CV or resume because our recruiters, not all of them have transitioned, and some of them will still request for you to send in that resume or CV. Next, I wanted to move on to...
Just a question, Stuart, from Bernard.
Okay.
As his hand raised. So Bernard, please ask a question.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is straightforward. How sure are we that the recruiters on the platform are genuine? Because we've had instances where one of my students applied for a job through the LinkedIn. In the long run, we realized that it was a fake. They wanted to take money from her. So how sure are we that all the recruiters on the platform are genuine?
Thank you very much for that good question. And yes, so LinkedIn is a place, of course, where we value you as members, and we want you to have a great experience, including your students likewise. And of course, if you do spot those fake profiles and you happen to see something that makes you unsettled, please definitely report it and we'll take action. LinkedIn is a part of Microsoft, and LinkedIn's process to development of the platform is always members first. We always think of you first as a member. So with that, the question you've just raised, we've had some questions coming through, of course, around validation of recruiters. So recruiters are currently in the process of verifying on LinkedIn. So it will verify that they work for the organization that they work for, and it will verify that they are a recruiter. So that's what we're doing. And on top of that, by the way, we run tools in the background to close off profiles that we suspect are not real representations of individuals. So we are actively, like yourselves, looking to make sure that this is a better environment for our students to be able to come in, network, learn, grow, and find economic opportunities. But thank you for that question, Bernard.
Thank you.
Pretty soon you will see a verified recruiter badge. It'll have a little V and a shield. You'll start seeing that on jobs that will be advertised. All right, so let's talk about, of course, how you stay up to date, because I do want to make time, of course, for the live demonstration. For your students, one other encouragement I would say you should make upon them is, of course, for them to continuously stay up to date with the industries, the jobs, the careers that they want to get into. And on LinkedIn, they can do this through either, of course, building out that network of people that will inform them around what's happening in the world of work. Number two, they can join groups on LinkedIn, and we have over 2.5 million groups. Some of them are even in your own countries, and some of them are based on subject matter experts in a given country talking together. So tax consultants, pharmaceutical officials, higher education professionals, those groups exist on LinkedIn. Encourage your students to join, because there they can start understanding what matters in the industry and ask hypothetical questions. I've seen students even join groups to try and solicit answers for interviews from working professionals. Number three, they can follow hashtags on LinkedIn so that they stay up to date on certain topics. I encourage students that, look, if you're going for an interview and you know the job is around data analysis, then come on to LinkedIn, put in hashtag data analyst or data scientist, and see what are the trending topics that maybe you can use in your interview meeting. Last but not least, we have events on LinkedIn, live meetings, groups, and talks, etc., that they can join in to learn and grow. What's more, I encourage your students to go beyond just having a static profile. I encourage them to share their perspective. I encourage them to engage with other people's content. I encourage them to educate other people, similar to yourselves. What have you learned in this session today that you can post on LinkedIn? And if you are, please use the hashtag the educative collaborative so that other people will join sessions like we're doing today. I encourage our students to think of themselves like a brand. So if you and I today were to walk out of the rooms we're in, chances are, if we get onto the main road, we'll see a billboard for telecommunication companies that are advertising. That does not make us buy data bundles, buy airtime, SIM cards, or buy Wi-Fi. But the day you and I need to purchase something that's related to a telecommunications company, that brand is living rent-free in our heads. So likewise, having a profile and just sitting back is not enough. We need to engage and thoughtfully, meaningfully engage with the professional network that we've built out. And what I encourage students is to say, as you're sharing content that maybe you learned something today, as you're sharing that content, try and drive engagement, try and have more people putting their perspective to it so that ultimately you don't feel the pressure of having to post new content all the time. At LinkedIn, to help you as career services professionals really support our students, we had a look and said in the last 5 years, in the 4.5 million people that graduated, what helped them get jobs? Number one was employee connection. Remember we spoke about networking? Having someone within a company that you can reach out to and say, I see your company is advertising this job. Why are they hiring? What skills matter? What results are expected in that role? What are the roles or the responsibilities? What can I build up before the interview in order for me to be best fit for that role? So employee connection, having a network for informational interviews is the number one factor that help people get hired. Number two, work experience. Remember, everything on your LinkedIn profile is searchable. So for your students, encourage them to build out their work experience. And a lot of them will say, but I don't have work experience. It's my first job. But they have worked in a family business. They've run a side hustle before. Maybe it collapsed, it failed. But they can start talking about what that side hustle was, or what that family business was, or where they did an internship, what results, what impact, what skills they acquired, because this will help them be discovered. So your work experience doesn't mean you're there full time. It could be an internship, could be a side hustle. It could be where they've done some work before as an internship. Number 3 and 4 is around skilling. What has helped people get access to jobs is skills. Because when recruiters are searching, they don't just search by the degree, they search by skills as well. In fact, dare I say, we are currently living in a skills economy. Because if I was just to search by degree, I still would not be able to shortlist. But if I search by skills, hard skills, behavioral intelligence, or soft skills, then I'll be able to find a holistic candidate that can be best suited for the work that we're providing. And in the work that we're providing, or the role I'm advertising, you will notice that roles and what is expected in those jobs is changing. So we've seen a factor of 25% change impacting what skills are required in a given job role since 2015. In 2027, we expect that to double. And what's more, with the advent of AI, we expect that to quadruple to a 70% impact in the skills required for a role. So even if you think of your job, your role as a career services professional, when was the last time you applied for remote work? When was the last time you applied to work in a job outside of your country? When was the last time you did a video interview? Now, maybe you didn't have to do any of those things in order to get to where you are today as a career services professional, but you do need to acquire these skills if you are to credibly support the students that we have. Their aspirations and the journey that they're on is completely different from the journey that you went on. So which is why we provide a learning platform as LinkedIn, where people can acquire skills such as career development skills, which speak to you as career services professionals, or skills to do with business, creativity, or to do with technology. These same skills that we provide for you, or you can subscribe to as a career services professional, are the same ones that are being used in the world of work by employees and leaders, and therefore would be the same skills that we would make available to your students. And for your students, given that I've said that it's a skills-based economy that we're all living in, it's important that they understand what skills are overarching in terms of demand. And what I'm showing here on screen are the top 10 skills that are required across multiple jobs. And as you can see, number one is communication skills. So our soft skills that people tend to shy away from investing in are probably the most impactful skills, particularly now when we live in a world of AI and where we need to be able to communicate efficiently if we're to use some of these prompt generators to get the information we need. Overarching on these top 10 skills, and I'm sure you're thinking, yes, it's AI. No, not AI, the skill around adaptability and being able to show that you're agile in the world of work matters. And your students might be sitting there and saying, I'm in university, I'm in college, I'm in a tertiary institution. Why are you encouraging me to make time to learn more? I'm encouraging them, and you're encouraging them to make time to learn more because that's what will help them get hired. The data is this, is that when a student builds a profile and invests in acquiring soft, hard, behavioral intelligence skills, when you add those certificates onto your profile, it makes you more discoverable. 9% more discoverable than someone who hasn't. Because what's going to happen is you're adding the certificates, and those who know you will celebrate and will endorse you around those skill sets, making you more discoverable, giving you the 9% added advantage. Number two, if you go one step further and you take a skills assessment, which is a quick 15 questions, Q&A, multiple choice, if you do a skills assessment, say on Microsoft PowerPoint or any given topic that you care about, if you do that, you're 20% more likely to get shortlisted or interviewed and hired. So if your students are looking for a 29% added advantage into the world of work, then definitely build out your profile, add skills to it, and of course, do the skills assessment. And show the world that you're a lifelong learner. Recruiters, when I speak to them, they tell me they hire people who are inquisitive, people who want to learn, who want to grow, because the world of work is changing, and you might be asked to do 2 or 3 things in the world of work that have nothing to do with your core job. So learning to learn is important, but learning also to learn things that make you more efficient in the work that you do is equally important. Likewise, I said the world of work is changing, and the work that you do as a career services professional is changing around you right now. I encourage you to take a copy of this screenshot or the QR code to gain access to 10 skills that we're making free for you up until January 1, 2025. Let's move on in terms of some of the other things students will ask you before we open it up for questions. Now, everything I've spoken about is, of course, what you can do on your LinkedIn profile for free. Now, what you can do if you want to make an investment, or if your students want to make an investment, is into something called LinkedIn Premium. If they choose to go down the route of LinkedIn Premium, here's some of the most important things that it can help your students do. Number one, find that right job. Number two, to stand out in front of hiring managers. Number three, to be able to network and interact with people they're not connected with, particularly like recruiters. And last but not least, have access to those 22,000 courses that they can do that are aligned to their roles. What they also get is the opportunity to leverage AI in terms of creating messages on LinkedIn. Like I said, content sharing and content engagement is an important part of bringing about your visibility. They can also leverage AI to reach out to hiring managers and to recruiters in terms of messaging. They can also use it, again, from an AI perspective to say, here's a job. Am I the right fit for it? What skills am I missing? What else can I do on my resume to make me a better fit for that role? And of course, once you're on Premium, you'll also get added insights into, for this job, here's how many people have applied, here's what the highest level of education is, and for this job, here are the 10 skills they needed, and you only are displaying 4. So that sort of information and those situational intelligence will help our students decide on which jobs to apply for and which jobs not to apply for. So the premium ultimately helps support them. Now, in terms of resources to help you as professionals help the communities that you support, be it students, graduates, and of course, some of our faculty members, I've put up some resources that you can gain access from. So the first one is a YouTube channel. There, typically, I will go in and I'll cover a role and say data scientist. And I'll say, these are the sort of interview questions you get for hard skills, soft skills, and behavioral intelligence. Here's the sort of qualifications they expect, sort of experience they expect, and how to answer interview questions. So that typically will help our students get ready for that. Number two, the presentation we've just covered now, you can find that in the second QR code that I've put up on screen. And then the last QR code on the right-hand side is so that you and I can connect. And when we connect, we can start helping our students go out into the world of work, find opportunities, but more importantly for me is how to help students to be found by those who are looking for them. So I will stop sharing at this stage the presentation, check if there's any questions. And while we're checking if there's any questions, I wanted now to transition and show, as we got a couple of minutes left, what else other recruiters are, other career services professionals are using to help students find jobs or to build up strategic partnerships. So are there any questions before I move across to sharing my screen?
Yes, there's a question on the chat box from Aravinda asking, in terms of accepting connection requests, do we encourage our students to accept everyone or message as many people to connect and grow their network, or should they be very careful in screening their requests to hit that 500 plus connections marker? So we can answer that.
Yeah, so I said LinkedIn is not a popularity contest, so don't chase the number 500. We deliberately put the number 500 so that people don't have that mindset of chasing. Ideally, connect with people you know, right? Those are the people you should be reaching out to. And when students are reaching out to connect, give someone a reason. Hey, Stuart, I looked at your profile. We went to the same university, or you studied the same thing. Or I want to know how you got into your job or what skills I should develop. Give someone a reason to connect up with you, especially if they don't know you. And if they don't know you and you don't have a reason, maybe follow them to start off with. And then eventually, after you've interacted with their content, etc., then you're in a position to now then say, hey, would you consider connecting up with me? So that's the way I would go about it. So don't randomly connect. And again, connect with people that are in industries you care about, because ultimately, your LinkedIn feed is going to be determined, what you see on your LinkedIn is going to be determined by what the people that you follow or the people that you're connected with. Can you see my screen and does it show LinkedIn?
Not yet, it's not showing yet. But just one other question. As career service professionals, we tend to wear many hats, including business, outreach. There's a product LinkedIn Sales Navigator. How can that product help, career service professionals? And then maybe we can expand on the benefits.
Career services like the product says, Sales Navigator tends to be for those of us who are looking to actually sell. It'll give you insights into organizations, into leadership, into what those companies care about, what they typically are posting. What I would recommend, which is what I'm trying to show right now, is, for example, what we would provide for career services, which is the Insights platform, where you can see services people, who's in HR at a given organization, who should I be reaching out to, what skills does that company hire for, who's got jobs that are currently open, etc., etc. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does. And there's also a request for more information on the benefits for LinkedIn Premium.
So you are going to get that on LinkedIn Premium. I'm just closing out my presentation, but definitely I would say number one is, of course, LinkedIn Learning courses. You can learn by a given role. So you as career services, here's something that really helps you. When a student is saying, I want to become a data scientist or a data analyst, or I want to become a digital marketing manager, you might not know the role, but they will be able to go in and see what skills are required for a specific role. So LinkedIn Learning is number one. Number two, insights into who's applied for the role and what skills they're looking for, and if I'm a correct match for that role. That will definitely be an added advantage in terms of that. And number three, when you have a premium account, sad to say, most people will most likely respond to you than they would if you didn't have a premium account. So those would be some of the top reasons why I would say reasons why people would use a LinkedIn Premium is get access to the learning, get access to the insights, and then ultimately start connecting with more people at scale. So I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully you'll be able to see it. And tell me if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, super. So I've got it open on LinkedIn. I'm just going to open up a platform called Talent Insights. So just for clarity, most of you won't have access to this right now, but typically here's what career services professionals are using to help students get access to jobs. So for example, number one, they can look up opportunities based on location. So for example, you could say, across Africa, maybe my students are looking for jobs. And if my students, for example, are software developers, which we know are currently probably the number one skill in demand, what kind of a world of work are they entering into, and how can I best position to help them? I could have looked up, I've said Africa here, I could have been specific and said Nigeria, oops. I could have then gone in and said Ghana, I could have then gone in and said Kenya, any country, but generally I'm just trying to put a picture across here. So you can search by location, or you can search by other filters that you're seeing on screen. But here's what it's telling us so far. In Africa, just by using one thing, software development, it tells me there's 238,000 professionals in software development. But it tells me that 31,000 of those people changed jobs, and that there's currently 1,332 jobs currently open. Now, that's not an accurate representation of the market. There's definitely more people. There's definitely more people who've changed jobs, and definitely more jobs. How do I know? I know because I haven't filled in degrees, locations, and other things that recruiters will use to search when they're looking for talent. So the first thing I can do as a career services professional and as a university is quickly say, what are the common skills that these Africans have in terms of software development? So as you can see, I'm adding skills that are listed here that are in common, that these professionals have, that have jobs, that we know the gender split and we know who's hiring for those. What we might also want to do, and remember here, I said there's 238,000 professionals. Right now, I've just added some of these skills that are in common. What I might want to do as a university, or if I'm helping a student from a career services perspective, is to say, here's the fastest growing skills that other professionals have grown. So it's to advise our students or our faculty, we should be teaching these things because this is what other professionals have grown in the last 12 months in the software development space. So I've just added in some of those fastest growing skills. If I now refresh this, what you're going to see, oh, sorry about that. I clicked the wrong button. There we go. It's coming up. As I refresh it, it now shows me 1.5 million professionals. It then shows me how many have changed jobs and shows me 5,200 jobs that are currently available across Africa for software developers. I get to see the companies, I get to see the locations where those jobs are, I get to see the types of skills, and you also get to see the functions, meaning the places where they'll work. In terms of your students as well, that open to work button that we're speaking about earlier, you can start seeing how it comes into play here, because now a recruiter can see how many people are open to work, how many people are looking for contractual work, and of course, where these people are located. Other professionals are using this platform to get a sense of where the jobs are, get a sense of which are the top employers of this job. They're also using this data to get a sense of the type of titles that are being used in the world of work. So when my students applying for a job, what titles should they be using? Because these are the ones that are in common. Number two, when my students are looking for jobs, not only do I want as a career services professional to say these are the companies that employ people like you, but at the same time, these are the ones that have the most jobs open. So we can see Oracle right now has 52 jobs open, Deloitte following with 29. What they also do with this platform, and excuse me, I'm rushing it a bit because we are at time, is they use the same platform to advise students that, yes, you studied software development, you thought you would work in this industry, here's the other industries that you should be considering for work. Because now it breaks down based on those 1.5 million people, which industries they're in, how many jobs are in those industries, if the demand for hiring is high, or if there's opportunities for, of course, our students to go in, and the top employers. Unfortunately, we are at time. I won't be able to show the employers, but as a career services professional, maybe when it comes to looking to employers, one thing you've never known is, where do they typically hire from? Which universities they hire from? What skills they are growing? Which departments in their company are losing people? Who exactly should I talk to beyond HR so that our students can get internships, placements, or jobs? All of that we can find when we review companies, but unfortunately we don't have time to do that. I just wanted to highlight in the short time, here's a tool where your university, your college, or your institution can partner with LinkedIn and have access to these insights so that ultimately you're able to advise students in real time. And as you can see, this is all real-time data. So if I just remove Africa, you'll notice now it's just Nigeria, Ghana, and Kenya. It will then start fleshing out new details and whether this talent is available and where to find it, etc., etc. Let me stop there, given that I've gone over the allocated time already.
Thank you so much, Stuart, for that. It's quite insightful to also know the kind of data we can be able to get from LinkedIn as career service professionals. So I want to open up the floor to the audience. If you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can put it on the chat box, and Stuart will be very happy to respond to the questions. So we have Selassie. Yes, Selassie, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much, Stuart. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I
can you just share once again how we can get this talent pool report? What do we have to do together?
Yeah, so for the talent insights, I would encourage you maybe to book time with me so that we can have a session so that we can go through the use cases for talent insights, and then what the cost is, and of course, how it helps your institution across the organization. So those in teaching and learning, those in alumni relations, those in career services, those in student enrollment, how all of us will use the same data we're looking at to achieve the different things we need to do in our jobs. So chances are we'll set up for a meeting together. After we set up for that meeting together, we will then bring in other stakeholders from your organization so that they see value, and then ultimately we can then say, is this subscription something we want to pursue as an institution? I'm just going to put into the chat right now the meeting link. So if you want to book time with me, here's a link for where you can book time with me, preferably next week when I'm back in Dublin, Ireland. So just putting it into the chat.
There's also a question from Mustafa. Supposing one wants to review the connections and disconnect from some of the connections that you made, is that possible, and how can we go about it?
Absolutely. I encourage you to do that. Whenever you got a few minutes before a meeting or before a session, I would thoroughly encourage you to remove some of the connections, because sometimes we make connections when we're still young, or when people are in the same industry or posting things we care about, over time you start seeing that, yeah, maybe this content doesn't help me. So you can actually remove a connection. And once you've removed the connection, LinkedIn won't tell the person that we've removed the connection. So don't worry about that. And then now intentionally and meaningfully start connecting with people in industries that you care about or in jobs that you want to be in. For our students, of course, you know what that means. It'll be, of course, careers that they want to be in. So yes, connections, I'd say definitely I encourage you to remove them. And I'm just going to share, I see in the chat someone was asking for the QR code one more time. I'm just going to share that QR code so that you can access the resources that I spoke about. So just putting it up on screen. I had closed the presentation, but I think I have the QR code right here so that I can share it. Any other questions while we start rounding off?
Yes, there's a question from Emmanuel. He would like to know how many number of posts had been made in a week to derive a lot more engagement on LinkedIn. And maybe you can also talk about how someone can be able to boost their profile so they can be able to reach their targeted audience.
Yeah, so in terms of content, if I understood it correctly, share what you care about and what you think will help your audience. Ultimately on LinkedIn, like I said, it's not about measuring likes. I would measure the number of impressions and maybe the number of times people retweet or share my content in their own forums or people that they're connected to. And then, of course, share things that you're passionate about. I think it's to seek to engage and to seek to have some sort of back and forth from other people. So typically I might say, here's the top 5 reasons why, the top 5 things to help students get jobs. And I might just only share the top 4 and ask other people that I know to start sharing their own perspective around what else helps students get jobs. So the 5th one, I don't type it out, but I ask my audience to commit to that. Using hashtags also matters. Thinking again, what is my audience doing at this time? And if I was to post something now, are there chances are they'll read it or not? Because again, sometimes we miss the boat in terms of timeline of when we're actually posting. And again, it's also to start thinking is if our students are looking for global jobs, is well, are you posting in the timeline that those economies are actually active and are online? Again, in terms of what else you can do on LinkedIn is to start contributing to other people's ideas and thought leadership. That's what I'd also encourage you to do.
Thank you so much for that.
Was there any other question?
Yes, there's also another question. How would you advise someone transitioning from a role? How can they update their profile? Yes. Maybe you can also talk about visibility, profile visibility.
Yeah, I'd say from a profile perspective, number one, and this is for your students as well, don't encourage them to have multiple profiles. Encourage them to only have one profile because there's only one true representation of themselves. Because I've seen students say, I've got a side hustle or I've got a job that's got nothing to do with what I studied. So I've got another profile. You just confuse the world and they will stop trusting you. So one profile is what I would encourage you to do. Again, if you're transitioning from one area to another, your about section, your summary section is where I would say spend a lot of time updating and keeping that up to date because that's where people tend to read. Your work experience, etc., people tend to read the title. And then if they see a laundry list of activities, they don't read through it. But if you really take the time to say, here's my results, here's my impact, here's the skills I acquired when I was doing this job, that also tends to help. And if you are transitioning into a new role, to help convince people that you're on that transitional journey and that you've got the skills that are different from what is on your profile, I'd say make time for learning, make time for learning and acquiring the skills that are associated with that profession. And I've just put into the chat there the LinkedIn Pathfinder, which will help you determine that in the next 6 months, perhaps I want to transition into a new role, and then it'll start curating for you what courses and learning you need to do in order to get access to that job.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I don't see any more questions in the chat box, but even as we proceed to the next phase of this session, I would encourage anyone, if you have any questions, please put it on the chat box. Stuart has left his, a link for you to book an appointment with him. If you want to follow up, I know there were questions about, how can universities partner specifically with LinkedIn? So he'll be able to also advise on that. Thank you so much, Stuart.
Patricia,
Yeah.
just one quick thing. So I do assist, but I can assist at a university level. I know we've got a couple of students that joined us today. Don't yet have the capacity to assist every one of us individually. But what I'd like to do is assist from an institutional perspective. So whether you're in career services, alumni relations, you're in faculty, please use that facility to book time for us to see where I can assist you. On the individual level, unfortunately, at this stage, I'm not able to assist.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So thank you so much, Stuart. I've really taken a lot from this, conversation. I think it also challenged me, personally as a career service professional in terms of updating my profile. So this was really timely. So thank you so much for this. And we're still going to hang around to answer a few questions in case anyone has, anything on the chat box. So I want to share our goals as the education collaborative, the community of practice. So please let me know if you're able to see my screen. Yes, you are. Great. Fantastic. So this new year, 2024 to 2025, the community of practice the leads have identified three major goals that we want our members to focus on. The first being LinkedIn. And this is the first session we're having this year, organizing a LinkedIn training for members, which goes towards professional development programs for career service leaders. Our aim is really to equip career service professionals to provide the best support possible for students and also enhance the transition rate for students into employability or even into entrepreneurship. So other than the LinkedIn training, we're also going to be having a LinkedIn training session for students. We're targeting 940 students from across 50% of the institutions represented within the community of practice. And after that training, we'll have a very exciting competition for the students with amazing, benefits and gifts for them, just really to get our students to take advantage of this, platform. We've heard from Stuart how amazing it is. 1 billion members on this institution and on the platform, and half of them being hiring managers and recruiters. So we really want to get our students using this platform and making the most out of it for their personal brand and also for their career goals. So that's our goal one: cross-institutional organized programs for students. And under goal two, professional development programs for career service leaders, we're going to be having an activity for member institutions who have not had any career service activity within the last 3 years. We'll be sharing this more on email. I know Grace and the rest of the team will be sharing this in terms of how you can be able to receive more training, so you can be able to have, activities that can really influence and, impact the students. Our third goal for this year is going to be developing and curating resources for enhancing career services. So we're going to be reaching out and, looking at the softwares and the platforms that are used across all institutions, higher education institutions, and particularly career services, and compiling that into a document that we can be able to share. Part of the goal for the education collaborative is sharing resources, learning from each other, what has worked, what has not worked, what can we use to better improve on our offerings to our students. So those are just the goals that we're going to be focusing on. I know Grace will be reaching out with the next session, which is going to be on the LinkedIn training sessions for our students. So when you do get that communication, please encourage your students to attend the training and even more to participate in the competition, because it's going to really be beneficial. I know, Grace, you had something to add on in terms of, yes.
No, Patricia, I think you've done the work. We just, after the session, we are going to reach out to members who are not already part of the community of practice. We don't put the link in here because people double apply to become a member, even though they've already registered. So we'll reach out to the members who are not already on, and then they can be members of the committee of practice. So thank you so much, Pashisha. The next thing is we'll take a beautiful photo. We'll invite our comms team to do us the honors. Roland, please, are you ready?
Okay. All right, so we're just going to have 3 tries at this. If you could smile, I can see your faces. We're just missing the smile now. That's good. That's good. I can see people smiling. Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Roland. Please complete the evaluation form before you leave the room. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stewart. Thank you, Patricia. Really, really grateful. Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, everyone.